Welcome to Catch Her Spark with Jen Maldonado. These are conversations with women who are building meaningful careers, stepping into leadership, and designing life on their own.
Oh my goodness, today I am super excited because we have a guest, Cassandra Fultz. She knows exactly what it feels like to seed on the other side of the border, waiting, right? Her own immigration journey started in 2008, and she was born and raised in South Carolina, and it took 2 long years for paperwork, patience, and uncertainty before she became a Canadian resident in 2008. So she thought it would just be a move, but it happens that she started everything there. Here was most people probably don't know, before she was one of the guiding families through the immigration system. She was living inside of it, and she's gonna tell us a little bit about it, the forms, the waiting, the not knowing her life was about to change or fall apart, right? That's for every immigrant. A year after finally getting her own status settled in 2009, she walked into the immigration industry herself. She wasn't chasing a career, but she was answering the problem she felt in her own chest. So, and by 2014, she turned that into something bigger. The Doherty Fultz immigration, built on one simple idea that people deserve someone in their corner who is actually been where they are standing. So, and somehow in between all of it, she found room to become a certifier sommelier. And she's going to explain what does that mean, which means the women who spend her days decoding government policy, which it can take a lot, can also tell you what's wrong with your wine before you have finished the first sip. Just trying to make it all funny about it, right? But it's not a funny process. It's just a happy process for people looking for a different type of life in a different place like Canada. So she didn't build just a firm, she built a bridge for you guys, and she's still standing on it, one hand reaching back for the next person trying to cross. And she's going to bring a lot of good information to us. So, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you so much for that introduction, Jen. That was a beautiful introduction. I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am doing great, excited. I have so many questions for you. I mean, there's so many things happening. I want to know more about your journey. I want to know what you're doing for citizens there in Canada, here in the States, and also more than anything, I want people to get to know you, Cassandra, because you have a really good story to share. And I think that a lot of women can see, how you have overcome a lot of the struggles from being an immigrant, from being in relationships that are with different cultures, to also help people adapt to new places, Cassandra. So, can you explain us more about your goal, your role in your firm?
Absolutely. As you said, my name is Cassandra Fultz, and my credential is regulated Canadian immigration consultant. And so what that means is I'm licensed to represent clients with regard to their citizenship and immigration applications, as well as proceedings at the Immigration Tribunal in Canada. And so my role in the firm as founder, it's certainly changed over time as the size of the firm has changed, right? When it all began, so many years ago now. When it all began, there were just a couple of us, and my role was everything. Essentially, we had to wear all of the hats, and there were times even I'm answering the phone too. So answering the phone, working on the files, submitting the applications, providing the legal representation, and developing the strategy, anything and everything. And nowadays, my role is more strategic. What I do is I maintain the relationships with a lot of our corporate clients. I oversee the marketing and strategy for the firm as a whole, and act as our chief executive for all of the team.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a
It
lot.
sounds like a lot when you say it, right?
Yes, it's like, wow. So before we get into the technical stuff, Cassandra, I want to ask you a personal question. What inspired you to open this firm? What a struggle you had, or what empowered you to open this room? What happened in your journey that says, I need to fix this? I need to be in someone's corner.
Sure. So I'm an immigrant myself to Canada. Of course, I was born in the States. I was born and raised in South Carolina, so that's where I grew up. And I went through the immigration process myself and made plenty of mistakes before I knew any better, right? I did everything myself back when I was super young when I came to Canada, just, barely over 21 years old. And what did I know about it? Nothing. I knew what I read online on the forums is what it was back then, because it's before, like a Facebook groups and TikTok and everything. So back then, I read what I was supposed to do online, or so I thought. Anyway, I remember we can distill this down to one moment, okay? So I'm like, okay, I have to do my sponsorship application, right? We crossed the border, got married, and then and then crossed back into Canada. And I remember I was standing there in front of the Canada Border Services officer, and he looks down, he looks at my passport, and he's like, "Why did you do this? Why did you do this?" Like it was the stupidest thing in the world. And I just said, "I don't know. I don't know why. I thought I was supposed to do this. Am I not supposed to do this?" And luckily, I have all the privilege in the world of being American. So he just like rolled his eyes. He's just like, "Okay, well, go, right? Get out of here." So they let me back into the country. Meanwhile, now I know what the problem was. The problem was I shouldn't have left. I wasn't supposed to have left. And what did I know? So it all really comes from that moment. And I had the privilege, like I said, of my passport saying USA on it. So they just let me go. But that's not what happens to everybody. If your passport doesn't say USA, right, or UK or France, you may not get a second chance. You may not get just derision and an eye roll. You may get refused entry. And so as time passed, and believe me, I felt stupid enough having just gotten the treatment from CBSA. But for other people, they're not just feeling dumb. Like they're dealing with real consequences. And I will never forget that moment. And I will also never forget, the years after that, while I was waiting for the decision and wondering, like, oh my God, did I do it right? And back in the day, it was paper, right? So you didn't know what was happening. You had no idea what was going on, and wondering, like, oh my God, did I mess it up? Am I going to get deported? Am I going to have to leave Canada? Am I going to be separated from my family? Disaster. So that's the kernel that all of this is built upon, and why I ended up where I ended up.
Wow. And I'm gonna lay it out this way. It's pretty much you were in a moment that if you didn't have the US citizenship and passport, one step forward and you could never come back, one step back and you can be in trouble. So pretty much
100%.
that was the decisive moment that you say, I don't want someone else to make this mistake, because for me, I was lucky, but for many other people, it would represent separating from their families and probably never get a chance to come back. So,
Exactly.
wow,
Exactly. So, and I
wow.
never forgot that. And when myself and my staff, uh, 98% of whom are immigrants also, we all know, we never forgot that anxiety, the fear, the worry of not knowing how this is all going to turn out, and the stakes being so high. And we carry this in our hearts always when we deal with all of our clients.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Now, for people considering, like, some of them are in the States, some of them are in Canada. So let's talk about the ones moving to Canada so we can follow your journey and go with you. So what has changed in the process for people in the States wanting to go to Canada?
So, over the years, there have been a lot of changes. In 2015, we got the new express entry system Obviously, it's old hat now, right? 11 years deep. But the system continues to evolve as well as the needs of the country evolve. So the people who are getting priority today are not the people who are necessarily getting priority when the system began. Now, for Americans who end up going to Canada, this can be beneficial, right? This can definitely be beneficial if your skills and your talents and your experience align with the goals of the Canadian government, or it may mean you have a longer road and you have to work harder and you have to jump through more hoops to get what you want. For Americans, though, one of the biggest and most exciting changes of for sure the last multiple decades. It actually started back in December of 2023. And this was with a court decision which ruled that the first generation limit on who can inherit Canadian citizenship from their ancestors was unconstitutional, right? It was in conflict with the Canadian Constitution. This is what the court found. And so fast forward to just a few months ago, this has turned into legislation, which is known as Bill C3, a bill to amend the Citizenship Act. And what this has done is it has completely eliminated the first generation limit for anyone born outside Canada before December 15th, 2025. And so what that means is if you were born before that date outside Canada and you have a direct Canadian ancestor, you can inherit Canadian citizenship. It doesn't have to be your parent, right? Not just a mom or a dad. It can even be a grandparent, a great grandparent, a great great grandparent. You can go back as far as you dare as long as you get the documentation to prove this. And, the further back you go, the harder it can be to get the documentation. However, even with sort of holes and patched evidence and things that, showing up from different sources, you can still apply. You can still apply. People are making successful applications right now, literally, who are, the 5 generations removed from Canada. It's terribly exciting. It's so cool, and it's a real exercise in fairness.
Yes. Wow, that's big. That's big. And it
Yeah,
opened
it's
many
major.
yes, and it opened many opportunities for those considering to move to Canada. Now, I have a question for you. You have talked to so many people, and this is a personal curiosity. I have been in Toronto and I love it. It's very cold for me. However, it was an amazing city. Um, what are the reasons why or what people are telling you why people want to move to Canada?
This is a great question. It's really at the heart of everything. Like, why bother, right? Because it's a major undertaking. It is to say it's inconvenient doesn't begin to describe what a challenge it can be. And so you really got to want it, right? If you actually want to move to Canada, you really have to be invested in that process. So there has to be a good reason. The most common reason that Americans move to Canada is family, right? We have, in the Peace Arch, inscribed on the Peace Arch in the park, which sits on the border between the US and Canada and BC, it says, "Children of a common mother." And it's true. We're so much alike, right? We have the movie in Canada. It's an old movie. It's called My American Cousin, and it's so true. Like everybody's got an American cousin here. Tons of Americans have a Canadian cousin up north. We are so intertwined because we share, right, the longest undefended border in the world. We have grown up together as two nations, descended from the UK and France, coincidentally. So we have so much in common, and there are so many blended families. So many blended families where, one partner is Canadian, one partner is American, and sometimes they end up on either side of the border. And then sometimes they move to one or move to the other one, and sometimes both, even in one lifetime. So the most common reason is family. And then otherwise, there's a lot of people chasing professional opportunities. People get accepted to a Canadian university. People receive a job offer, right, in Calgary and Toronto and Vancouver. And besides that, sometimes it's just for a change of scenery, a change of experience. You know, like obviously I grew up in the US, so I was raised on the melting pot, right? I will never forget that. And in Canada, there's a slightly different sort of bent on that, which is multiculturalism, right? You in Canada, we don't all disappear into the melting pot and emerge on the other side as one thing. It's a little bit different. It's more of a mosaic where everyone's identity essentially remains intact. And then we are all here under the Canadian umbrella, but we're also all different.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, I will start asking multiple questions around these areas. One, let's start with the melting pot and cultural changes. And the reason why I'm asking, you being an immigrant, to your point, there's a melting pot already happening when you were born. There is a change in culture and identity now that you moved to Canada. Tell me about your struggles going through that process of migrating to a new country, but also coming already with melting pot in you too.
Sure. It's really interesting. You know, there for me personally, there are sort of multiple facets to the answer to that question. When I was growing up, obviously I'm a black woman. I'm a biracial woman. And so, you know, my dad is black, and my dad's side of the family has been in the US, in South Carolina for hundreds of years, right? For hundreds of years, which is so interesting and exciting. You know, my family on my dad's side, they're from Sumter County, and my great great grandfather was a Sumter. So, you
Wow.
know, I know it's super
Yes.
interesting. So that gives some context. And then, you know, my mom is white. She was born in Europe and ended up growing up in the States too, but a completely different, you know, cultural background. And, you know, I'm born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s. And so things were different. Let's just say things were different back then. And it was not as easy as it might be today to define yourself, right? There were, you know, very clear delineations along cultural lines. So you were this or you were that. And, you know, I'm from a small town in South Carolina, and let me tell you, when I was growing up, there was definitely no multiculturalism. There was none of that. I can remember being a kid in school, and we had it was there were truly there was like a handful of Indian families in the town, like families from India, and like a handful of Asian families. I remember my second grade class was really multicultural because we had a Korean girl and we had a Chinese girl. And this was like wow, 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 you know. So obviously very different than today. I don't remember having any Hispanic or Latina people, like kids in school with me till high school. So it was a different world, right? Like totally different world. And so it was difficult for me as a kid growing up in South Carolina to define myself, right? To navigate that sort of cultural gauntlet because there was no one to tell you about their experience unless you knew them personally, right? Unless you were lucky enough to know someone in your life who had experienced that. But if you didn't, there was just nobody there to help you. You're on your own. There was no, you know, there were no Instagram creators who, you know, there was no mixed girl meetup back then, right? Like you have on Instagram now. It just didn't exist. So that was a real challenge trying to, you know, remain authentic and true to myself while defining myself and, you know, writing my own story because it wasn't there was no precedent, at least that I had, you know, access to as a little girl in a small town, South Carolina. And then after having grown up and you know, spread my wings and moved further afield, that challenge doesn't go away. The challenge doesn't go away because now I've had to, you know, meet another challenge, which is being an immigrant, and that is also two disparate identities. In some ways, I am so American. So American. Like people, my friends, even people who don't know me that well, they will say, I'll say something, just even like a turn of phrase, and they're like, "What? What's that now?" Or if you get that glass of wine, and then suddenly the accent comes out, and they're just like, "And where are you from? Where are you from?" But then you go back home and people are like, and where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from here. I went to West Side. And they don't necessarily believe you because you don't sound like them anymore and you don't live there anymore. So it's difficult crossing those borders, both visible and invisible, to try and hang on to yourself and know who you are when no one can tell you.
Yes, I can relate to that 100%,
Because
Cassandra.
you're Puerto Rican, right?
Yes, girl, these people ask me, so where are you from? And I'm like, well, Puerto Rican. So we have three races. We were conquered by many countries. We are part of the United States. We are in Latin American, Caribbeans, speak Spanish, but have English as an official language too. I mean, it's so many areas. And then when you come to the States, to your point, now you're an immigrant, regardless that US and Puerto Rico are Commonwealth. People see
Yeah.
an immigrant and you're
You're
like,
an immigrant in your
how,
own country. Like, how does
yeah.
that work?
And you're like, how do I explain this? So and it's a sentiment too, right? And to your point, it's like, what is my real identity? Yes, I'm Puerto Rican, and right now sometimes it's challenging the cultural shocks, right? With friends and family and new acquaintances. How do you integrate? And I think that I don't know if that's something that you're dealing with also in the personal life, right? That has been a big change too. Have you encountered that in, personal relationships or things like that?
Definitely, definitely, absolutely. I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think it'll ever stop coming up. But yeah, it's definitely something that I've dealt with. My husband, for example, this is my second marriage actually because I got married to a Canadian and moved to Canada, and that didn't work out. I'm a statistic because it happens disproportionately among people who are sponsored to Canada. I have a wonderful husband now, and he is a great person, but he's from a wildly different background than me, right? He's a Jewish. He grew up in Toronto, right? His family are Eastern European, and so we couldn't be more different. We couldn't have started from more different places. We couldn't have had more different experiences, but it's really, that is making that integration successful on a large scale and on a small scale for interpersonal relationships. It really, for me, it's all about meeting people where they are and people meeting you where you are, right? Meeting halfway to really get to know the other person and see behind the curtain an experience that you didn't have yourself.
Yes. I mean, it's so amazing to go through this process because I think that's, I don't know if you see it this way, but for me it's like make it or break it, right? Because it's such a big melting pot and so many obstacles, and at the same time it takes from us as a human being a lot of understanding, communication, and more what I say awareness than judgment, which sometimes we tend to do that as human beings. We tend to judge other cultures without understanding what's behind them, right? And I think communication is
Absolutely.
critical. What are your secrets to keep that relationship healthy?
My personal relationship
Yes,
with my husband.
yes.
This is this is a good question. So for me personally, because of who I am, the biggest challenge is making sure to listen. It sounds hackneyed, it sounds trite. You've heard it all before, but it really is about listening and not just hearing the words, but really understanding, really taking on board what the other person is saying. We've been together, what year is this? 8 years now, which is, some time, enough time to really know someone. And when you know someone, you also have to employ that knowledge. You have to use that knowledge and remember that, okay, it really upsets them if I do this, right? It really bothers them, or they don't feel heard when
Yeah.
I frame it like this.
Yes. Yeah.
But this makes them feel heard, and that's my strategy. That's my strategy. It's worked for me to really try and make sure to keep top of mind who he is as a person, and to know that limit, play within it.
I love that. Yes, listening is one of the hardest skills to develop, to your point. When I moved to the US, because I didn't speak the language, it
Mm.
was very hard for me to speak. So I have to do the opposite, to listen, use two ears and try to understand what they're saying beyond just words because I could not understand some of those words. So it was a great lesson for me, and I think it was a blessing. But now communication have changed significantly for me, and I think it has been very helpful to your point. And now I use that to build more relationship outside of my personal relationship. So, Cassandra, through this process, what has been the key success to help people in what you do? So, I'm going to bet that one of them listen to what they need. But walk me through your process on how you have helped these people differently, why you are so popular, let's call it that way.
Sure. So for me, it's there are two very simple principles, to be honest with you. It's really not complex. It's really not. Number one, first and foremost, the golden rule, right? That's how I grew up. Treat people the way you want to be treated. When someone interacts with anyone on our team, the most important thing for me is how they feel after that interaction. What I want, my goal is when someone has worked with us, when someone has had a conversation with us, when they've contacted us, when they've gotten an email back, and they've had a consultation with me or one of my team, I want them to put the phone down or to close the Zoom and to think, thank God I found them. Thank God I found them. I want them to feel relief. I want them to feel like, oh, all right, now I know. Now I know what to do. Now I know the next steps. Now I can feel confident in making a choice, an educated decision, not to, hang up the phone and feel more frustrated than when you started. To hang up the phone and to feel less confident. The worst I can remember very, very clearly having dealt with professionals, and they make you feel stupid. Like they're talking to you like you're dumb. It's unimaginable to me. I cannot imagine ever talking to a client like that. And so what I tell the team, and what I am very hopeful has trickled down through the entire organization, is our goal is to treat people the way you want to be treated. Imagine that's your mom on the other side, right? That's your mom who sent an email. That's your grandmother. That's your sister who has never left the country. That's who we're taking care of here, because we are stewards of our clients' lives. Our clients' lives, the next step in their lives, it's in our hands. And this is a major responsibility, right? It's a major responsibility to take care of these people. These are not names on a ledger, right? These are not passports. These are people. These are human beings that we are stewards of their future. We have to take care of them. We have to act in their best interests at all times. So it's imperative that we keep that in mind while also treating them the way that we would want to be treated. And those are really the most important things. It's very simple. And then the third pillar in that sort of triad is to be honest. To be honest, we cherish candid advice, right? We will always tell people this is what you're dealing with. And if an application has a 50-50 chance, or a 1% chance or a snowball's chance in hell, we'll tell you. Either way, we will tell you. And regardless of what chance it has, we are still going to put our back into it. Even if it really is a 1% chance, we're going to put our back into it even more to make it happen if humanly possible. But you will know. You'll go into the process with open eyes. No one's telling you, oh, yeah, it's definitely going to work out. Like, I've interacted with representatives who say that to people, and they say it to everybody, right? They don't care if it's true. They don't care that this is someone's life savings. They don't care that someone has been working against a terrible exchange rate to try and come up with your retainer fee in Canadian dollars. They don't care about that, right? They just want to get that cash. No, the most important thing is to be honest with people. And as long as you're honest and you tell them, this is probably not going to work out. If they still want to do it, we're going to do everything we can to make it happen, but they will know the truth.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I don't think I have to explain why you are so popular then. Right?
Bless you.
And bam, answer straightforward, clear. Now, I'm gonna ask you this, and oh my God, I want to ask you much more questions. We will have to do another episode that focus on technical stuff, but I want people to know who is Cassandra because I think your story and your passion for what you do is very inspiring. And also, people can see you as that resource. But I have a couple of questions for you before we end this. Now, one question I get very often from my investors and in the syndication world in building wealth, I have Canadians calling me, Jen, how can we invest in your funds? And how can I move money there to invest with you? And I have people to, Jen, do you know how can I invest in Canadians funds? And I'm like, I don't know that answer, but I'm going to find it for you. We're going to start somewhere. And I'm getting it more and more. Do you have any comments in regards to that question?
Sure. So what I'm not is a financial advisor or planner.
Mm.
So this is not, this is strictly my personal experience. It's not official advice. And my personal experience is this. It's really, really, really important when we're engaging in any type of cross-border finance. And as an aside, if you hold multiple citizenships, you are engaging in cross-border finance, whether you realize it or not. Okay, this is the
Yeah.
really important part. So, number one, be candid with your financial advisor, your financial planner about any and all citizenships that you hold. Okay, they need to know. This is need to know information. And the reason it's need to know information is because, like, as a dual, for example, dual US Canadian citizen, you are, still subject to both tax regimes if you live outside the US. So, if you're American and you're living in Canada, for example, then you see all your Canadian friends are running around with their TFSA, the tax-free savings account, and they're invested and making so much money and all this stuff. And we can't really do that. It's not that you can't, but you need to be strategic about it because there are conditions, when it comes to taxation, because you're still subject to filing U.S. tax returns, even if you don't live in the U.S.
Yeah.
So the most important thing to keep in mind for anyone who is, a dual citizen, dual national, who's living outside, who's residing outside of their country of nationality, if you're thinking of investing, speak with a professional. This is the most important part. Speak with someone who understands that cross-border finance.
Yeah, I love that, Cassandra. Even if you are in the US, you need to do that, right? Investing
You
in the
do.
US.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, please
Yes. Yeah.
get the advice of a pro for sure.
Yes, yeah, cross border, it gets more complicated because there are more rules that
Oh
the
yeah.
US professionals might not be aware. So you have to work with a specific people that they're experts. So thank you for giving us your view. I know that you have a little bit of experience on that too. So I have one last question, which I think is one of the most important. If people want to get hold of you, how they can contact you?
is very simple. Send an email. This is ideal. Send an email to info at D like Delta, F like Foxtrot, immigration.ca. That's the email box. I have eyes on it, and so does my team. So you'll get a quicker answer if you're not waiting for me only to respond. You can send us an email. You can also catch us on social media. We're on Instagram at DF Immigration TO for Toronto, Ontario. And then you can also catch me on LinkedIn. I am active on there. You can find me there. You can reach out. And of course, the old fashioned way on the phone, you can call us at 416-827-8778. Honestly, email is the best because you can take your time, you can include your query, you can put in any context that you want, and there's no character limit. So that way you can include everything that you want to get across, and then we can reach right back out to you. You can schedule a call and go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cassandra, for gifting us time and sharing with the community a snapshot of your life or your experience, your journey, and your wisdom. So we really appreciate you having you.
Jen, thank you so much. This is my pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me on. It's truly an honor to be included among your pantheon of women entrepreneurs and guests.
You've been listening to Catch Her Spark with Jen Maldonado, where bold women lead the way. Ready to share your spark? Apply to be a guest at catchherspark.com/guest.